We do have some staff that is concerned with not having the physical contact with the doctor, checking blood pressure, that kind of thing. How do you guys handle those situations?
So it's always at the discretion of the specific physician who you're speaking with, but there's certain criteria that they have to fulfill in order to identify specific conditions. If it's something that they're not able to identify based off of this strictly virtual visit, they'll tell you that. They'll say this isn't something that we can handle within our scope. We would advise that this is really urgent and you should go to urgent care, or maybe you can wait till your PCP visit is available. So they'll communicate that to you. Specifically, this is a good example because it comes up often. We do not prescribe for ear infections for children under 12. So it's just the specific legislation that's been created. So anything under 12, I believe it's 12, they'll identify that. They'll say specifically for this disease, if you did not have a prior diagnosis, that this isn't something we can prescribe for. So again, certain criteria for each condition, but they'll identify if they can or cannot assist you over the phone. I know that I think it's also for UTIs with individuals that are younger than 12 also. If they do not have a prior diagnosis, then, or prior, checking out their conditions, they will not be able to do it virtually. So there's certain criteria that they have to meet for specific conditions.
So really the way this should be used is that you go to your primary care provider on a regular basis for your regular routine stuff, and then on that rare occasion you have a sinus infection or a UTI or something simple, you use the teledoc rather than trying to get in,
Exactly.
Since you probably can't get into the urgent care.
That's exactly what it's there for. Okay. So never trying to eliminate that relationship because it's not going to do you any good. But absolutely. So the time that I'm a fairly healthy person, I know I get sick twice a year around Christmas time and usually around this time. And it's like a little cough that won't go away. So I could call up and say, hey, X, Y, and Z is happening. But we don't want you to use this as your PCP.
Okay.
It's obviously there to help you save time and money. And for the school district too, each time that your employees have to take time off, that's someone that you guys have to get for a sub. And then, their action plan is thrown off for that day too. So it's not only providing a convenience to your members and a great alternative access to care, one that's free, but for you as a self-funded school district as well, it's going to be helping you save additional dollars where you might not, have had the option before.
And then what about using, I know there are a few programs that will utilize blood pressure wearable devices, different things like that. Do you have any of those options available?
So the only thing along those lines is a Kinza. So our mobile app will sync with the Kinza. So that's basically the thermometer. So you can help, that's one way that we can help diagnose certain things is the Kinza thermometer that will sync with our app, with your phone.
The person would have to own that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
How much is that?
I'm not sure how much the Kinzas are actually.
I think it's $40.
$40.
You can buy them on Amazon. You
Yeah.
can buy EKG monitor for $99 too. You put on the back of your phone. They're pretty good. But it does save you even I've had to use our urgent care down here and spent 45 minutes even with an appointment.
For the urgent care or emergency room?
For urgent care.
And then,
Emergency room would be 4 hours.
yeah, exactly. But exactly, we've actually had members that have been sitting in the emergency room. It's taking forever because it's not emergent, so they've called us and said, hey, I just want to see if we can help. And it's usually a very common thing that's on our list of, top diagnosis. So I always encourage people to start with us first. At the end of the day, if we can't help, we'll give you better advice and it's still free. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I know you said it's virtual so you can see the doctor. Can they diagnose like strep throat or no?
So there's specific criteria for strep throat, but that's actually one of our common diagnoses. There's 5 specific things that they have to identify. And I believe it's, if you have 2 or 3 of them, that's kind of on the border. If you have 4 or 5 of the criteria, you absolutely have strep throat, even if you don't have a test. Same with UTIs, but specific criteria. And then I can always provide that literature to you guys to pass along as well of how we specifically diagnose UTIs and strep throat. But absolutely, that's something that we do. And again, it can either be virtual, that if you wanted to do the video, you can see the physician. If you just wanted to do the phone and send video or photos, you can do that, yeah.
And how long has Teladoc been doing this?
So we have kind of been the industry leader for this. We kind of started everything back around 15 years ago. So this year, last year we did 1.5, just around 1.5 million consultations, and this year we're projected to do over 2 million. So it's not something that's brand new. It's absolutely established. It's just people are starting to get more familiar with it. So there's still, a learning curve to it, but it's absolutely becoming much more saturated.
Don't you think the providers are becoming more familiar with it too?
Oh, absolutely. They're usually a lot of local providers too, even if they're not a part of a telemedicine network. They're starting to provide that within their local, their brick and mortar facilities. So.
Do you know if you have any Teladocs in Havasu?
We're actually looking into that. So I've been asked that question, and we're still waiting back from our network team. Because there might be an option to, like I told you, you'll be able to select your physicians. There might be an option to do that and identify if they're a Havasu physician. Oh, sorry.
Some more questions?
How's the district charged on this? Is this like monthly, yearly deal, or is it a per use?
How's the district charge?
Yes. Or is it a per use?
It's budgeted $4.25 PEPM. So it's a
Per
flat
employee
rate
per
per
month.
employee.
We're charged per employee per month $4.25.
And then no fee per visit. And that extends to the whole family.
So we're charged $4.25 per employee per month, and that covers whether it's a single person or there's however many, unlimited number of people in the family.
Correct.
Are we going to be billed on our entire staff or just those that choose to enroll in our plan?
Medical enrollment.
The medical enrollment?
That's just for the 425 is for the three basic things, not the other three.
Well, technically, Madam Chair, and how those are included. We
Okay.
did not have it figured out how to administer it. That has to be a Gilsbar, so we're leaving it for December to June, January to June. We're leaving them off, and the renewal will figure out how to administer it with the remainder of the schedule. The intent being to add those.
That'll still be 425.
Stays the same.
Yeah.
If
Stays
it
the
doesn't
same.
change.
Right. Okay.
You'll also be receiving monthly utilization reports, so you'll be able to track very closely how successful the program is.
When you say you, who's you? Who gets the report?
Whoever wants to be a recipient on there.
And they come to us, then we distribute them as part of our monthly
Okay.
report.
Okay.
So we'll get those utilization reports the same way as we get our utilization on the vision and the dental and whatever, everything else.
And then just, Madam Chair, just a point of clarification, what we've done with our other clients that enrolled it, what's that thermometer called again?
The Kinsa?
The KINZAs, what we've done is they have a marketing department, they'll kick in X number of KINZAs, we'll kick in X number of KINZAs, and then you'll just everybody who signed up, and including the people who previously had, you do a sign-up drive, and everybody gets entered in a drawing, and they get a KINZA. So you just, stuff like that to keep it out in front of people.
Oh, that's a nice idea.
Because what we found is that the more you get to sign up and load their information, the easier it is for them to use it. Because frankly, I wouldn't do that. I'd be the guy that wouldn't do it, and I'd be annoyed when I called and they had to give them my medical history, because I'd be sick and cranky. So you get them loaded ahead of time.
Yes.
Smartphone. It sounds like for the most part you have to have access to a smartphone to be able to share a picture or
So
video.
you can contact our call center. If you prefer to do online, you can do that. So those are our 3 main access points. apps or 3 apps.
So you can do it on your computer at home or a computer
Yep, so
or
an actual computer, a smartphone, or strictly contacting through our call center. That is a more lengthy registration process, just because everything is verbal. You don't have it at the touch of your fingers. So our call center reps have to, your very first time you call, they have to verify your eligibility. They have to ask you every single question that you would just briefly look over for medical history. And then they'll get your preferred pharmacy as well. So everything that you would have to input online or through the app, they're going to be asking you the same exact questions. And then they'll schedule you your visit, whether it's first available or you wanted a specific time with a specific physician. So same exact features and functions through any of those 3 modalities. It's just whatever your preference is. So really whatever, maybe it's your level of comfort with technology. Maybe you don't have a smartphone, maybe you have a flip phone, or maybe you just prefer connecting with someone verbally. It's however you guys want to do it.
But the majority diagnosis require interaction with photo or video?
Nope, I would say about 80% of our calls are strictly verbal. So it's a very small population that does use the visual aspect. And then the only thing that would be different is you wouldn't be able to share a photo or do the Skype option if you do it over the phone with our call center. But they'll let you know that too. So most times you don't need a photo or visual aspect, but they will let you know that on the phone.
But if you do want to do the virtual, you can do your smartphone, Android, any of that. You can do an iPad. You can do
Your
anything
laptop.
that has an app
Exactly.
ability, that kind of a thing, or a computer.
Yeah.
As long as it has a
Your
screen.
smart TV. Anything with
Smart
the internet.
TV.
Actually, yeah, that's something that we're working on. So that one's actually going to be
Kindles.
really cool. What's that?
The Kindle.
Yeah.
Those are those
They still use it.
people's, yeah.
It's got internet connection. You can get on the internet.
Exactly. You can do it with your Apple Watch. Speaking of the musician.
Books to the library.
I still do books.
Erin, how do your other groups that use this, how does it go over for them?
Very well. It's like, we put it in on a lot of our more rural plans, and what we see is that you do have to create that that awareness, that first top of mind thing. That's when we started doing the Kansas and whatnot. So we'll get, like if we get 25 to 30% sign up in the first 3 months, then it seems to start to build its momentum.
And Courtney, you said when someone signs up, you encourage them to, before they're sick, to go in and do all the preliminary information.
Exactly.
Okay.
When they do it through the call center, they automatically ask that as well. So they say, okay, you know what, we found you in your system. Would you like to finish your registration right now? So they kind of prompt you. When it's through the app, it's intuitive, so it's following those same steps. So it's up to the member to kind of avoid that if they wanted to.
So it's kind of like when you do what we tell people is when you're with our groups, when we did the employee education meetings, we tell them, have, like when you go to an open enrollment, have your kids' names, the addresses, if you're taking maintenance drugs, have the list next to you so you can put the drugs, the dosage, the frequencies. So that way it's a one-time process, get it loaded. Right.
Good, thanks, Courtney.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, I'll take it, I think I'm
Oh,
next.
there you go.
We're gonna move on then.
Yes, are there any other questions for as far as for the teledoc? Okay.
Tell them we're starting the presentation, and we'll take it from there. Oh, I was gonna say, Madam Chair, so so everybody knows, we've got Mike Shunning, the actuary. Basically, he's in San Diego and he's on call. What I was gonna suggest is it might be better if I did our presentation and then dial him in if you wanna get into methodology.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let me grab that and I'll text him and just let him know.
Okay. And Madam Chair, your permission, I'm gonna stand over here.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so what we're gonna look at right now is we're gonna look at the benefit plan redesign options really for one period. What we're asking you to do tonight is to restructure the benefits starting from January 1st to June 30 of 2019. And then as background, what we did in the background, we've never done this before, so you're going to hear me disclaim the second year quite a bit going through. But we were asked by the district to have, by the chair, to have an idea, whatever we recommended, to kind of look forward so the district could have some more planning in costs. So the caveat on that again I'll repetitively say throughout the presentation is that's looking way far ahead, their projections. We honestly thought it was a little crazy to do that at the beginning, but it actually showed us some kind of interesting stuff. I'll get into it. It's kind of geeky, but in essence, when we did it, we realized that, wow, there's some weird interactions going on here. It helped us build the benefit schedule going forward. Okay, so the background for us tonight is to review the benefit options and the pricing, the financial impacts for the changes we're proposing from January to June. I emphasize we're proposing because we realize you guys have to do it. And in the back is Sue. If you want to look at options, we looked at a total of 25 different options. And what we did, we were talking about this earlier, we literally spent about 14 hours between 2 days or 3 days spinning different options, different combinations, looking for what would work. The benefit options come from the planned closure of the clinic starting in January or December 31st because the entire benefit structure is built around that clinic. So what we had to do is break that structure apart to get back to a community-based system. And that's what we were looking at. So we looked at what would the benefit design look like from January to June, and then what would we change again starting in July, and how does all that work? So our objectives, what ECA used as our guides on this, was one, you'll remember that there's a funding gap. We updated the figure, I'll get to that in a minute. But we know that the current rates have a projected deficit of $477,000 for the current year. So we had to, whatever we did, we had to get rid of that gap. That was a big challenge. It's a lot of money. And the reason that's significant is it's very easy to delude yourselves institutionally about what your costs are. The single best indicator here of that level of delusion is that since 2016, the district has infused an additional $2.7 million into the trust beyond what was collected in rates or premiums to keep it solvent. So it would be dumb to assume that you can continue to underfund and not transfer money. It's already failed, okay? So we had to get rid of that funding gap to eliminate the need for that transfer. And then what we had to do is come up with a benefit design that we believe will be competitive in the local market for school district employees, recognize the fact that district has an intent to wind down its subsidy on the dependent cost. We wanted to give employees some choices between plans. So we wanted to come up with a second plan design that employees had the option to come into, and we wanted to do it in a way that we thought would be sustainable over time. In healthcare, with cost escalating as they always do, overtime to us means 3 years. If you can get a plan design that you can stick with for 3 years, that's pretty good. And I will tell you that's complex to do, okay? So where does the projected deficit come from? We updated, we were using 472, so we actually honed our numbers down, we threw the extra 5,000 in. But if you look on here on the left, the actuarial rates for funding are the ones on the left. So it would be for the gold plan, I'll just stick with the gold plan, it would be $751.89. But the district, between employee contributions and the district, is only putting in 667. And it goes all the way down. So all of the rates frankly, we don't know where they came from. They were basically pulled out of the air. Okay, so when you add it up, based on the current participation in the plan, all things being equal, we should end the year at $477,000. That number makes complete sense.
Do you have that information? Do you need that?
I think I need it.
Are you looking for
Those 3 handouts you've got.
the handout?
Yeah, maybe I get it.
So you want Dr. Atasi's one here?
Let's see.
Let's give
this
us
one right here.
Okay.
Oh, nope, you got 2 of the same, that's why.
That's
You didn't want 2 of those? Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Nope, he just got 2 of the same again.
No, he got the packet from, here,
Dr.
just give all of
Atasi's
Dr.
packet.
Atasi's.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Josh is gonna have to take a test without the papers.
There it is, right there on the second page.
Okay. So where you should be collecting call it $752 per employee, the trust is only collecting $668. And so that deficit multiplies times month by the number of people in each year. Okay? There's no other way to say it. That's illogical and it's unsustainable. Okay? So our process then became, and these are in the packets, is we sat down and brainstormed different levels of deductibles, different levels of co-pays, different levels of out-of-pocket maximums. Looking at January, we looked at 25 benefit redesign options. Okay, so and as I said before, we spun them. So we looked at January to June, which is where we're going to ask you to make a decision tonight. And if you don't like our 25 combination, that's okay. We have them with us. We'll sit here and do them in real time. You can see what we did. You can see how the numbers shift. It's slick the way it works. And I can't explain it. Sue's a CPA. She probably can't explain it in English, but she can do it. So that's all that happens. Okay?
Explain it in number form.
Yeah, she's fantastic on the numbers. So, okay, so here's what we were trying to do at the end of the day. We were running combinations because what we wanted to do, the plan was so structured around that clinic that the out-of-pocket maximums, the costs to the employees outside the clinic, we believe were prohibitive. Okay, the co-pays are too high, the deductibles are too high, the out-of-pocket max are too high. So if you could go to the clinic, you were great, but the minute you had to go to a hospital, you were in trouble. Okay? So what we wanted to do is lower the out-of-pocket max, or lower the out-of-pocket costs for participants in the community. We needed to reduce or eliminate that deficit, and we had to set it up so that whatever we did in July, we could add additional changes. Okay? And that's where the process the chair suggested actually, it helped us because we probably would have walked into a propeller. There's a weird one we've never encountered before, which we'll show you when we get in there. So here's what we did in January. Our primary focus for January was to lower the co-pays on the office visits, on the mail order prescriptions, and to add teledoc. Those were our three big things. We also equalized the sterilization benefit so that the males and females got the same 100% benefit. It wasn't a primary focus, but we looked at that. I thought that's weird. Vasectomies are a lot cheaper than tubal ligations. Let's cover them both at 100%. And then for the second plan year, we continue all of that, continue the copay changes, and then lowered the deductibles and the out-of-pocket maximums on the medical plan, and then added an optional high deductible health plan. And what we wanted to know is how does that work? Because you have a 6-month projection off current claims data, but then you have a 12-month projection where they've run everything forward, super conservative. It did some weird stuff. Okay, it still worked out in the end, but it was really tough to do. All right, so here's the changes that we're proposing for January 19. What we did is we show you where we're starting. I'll walk through these numbers and then where we end up. The failure, the only thing we weren't able to do, we were not able to eliminate the annual deficit. Okay, so if you look in the 6-month column and right next to it, our projected reserve drawdown for the second half of the year is $238,580. Okay, and that's basically because 6 months of the year is going to be gone. So all we did is we divided that 477 figure. That's the projected deficit for the year. So we have half of it still left. The other half's already gone. Okay. We have some funding factor changes. All the reds means it's an increase in cost or it's a negative. So the actuary had some funding factor changes just based on what was going on to lower the office visit copays. They're currently $55 for urgent care, for specialists, and for PCPs, $55. We left the urgent care alone. We lowered the primary care to $25, and we lowered the specialist to $50. We then we distinguished between freestanding lab and x-ray and hospital-based. Okay, so basically we said for LabCorp and for freestanding x-ray that instead of being deductible, which is $2,500, and then co-insurance, that would be a copay of $50 and then covered at 100%. Okay, huge. And what we're just distinguishing is the reality is lab freestanding is that much cheaper. It's depending on the facility. I can't say what happens because we haven't run it, but when we've done it in other cities that the freestanding stuff, the hospitals will be anywhere from 9 to sometimes 15 times the cost of the independents, the smaller ones. It just varies by community. So we moved that down to try to drive stuff to the freestanding. We put the sterilization benefit the same for females and males. We added teledoc at no cost to the member. And then we lowered the co-pays for retail 90 to $20 for generic, $70 for preferred brand, and $130 for non-preferred brand. And they're currently, Jamie, I have it on my notes, but I didn't bring it up with me.
Currently,
I have it in my
thank
book.
you, 25 for generic, 105 for preferred, and 195 for the non-preferred.
Okay. And then this is really where the money came from, is we backed out the costs that we have budgeted for the clinic lab, the clinic RX, the management fees for the second half. When you put the 425 in for teledoc, we wound up with a net savings for the second half of the year projected at $407,669. So which means we still, again, everything being equal, they're projections. We don't know how the claims will ultimately run, but we're looking at we have about $70,000 left over in the deficit.
Is the teledoc admin fee, is that a one-time charge?
No, it's every month, Hal. It's, so the admin charge is $4.25.
Oh, that's $4.25.
PEPM, so that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's the second half of the year.
I'm with you. All right.
So what's the other add teledoc? Is that
Yeah.
the one-time fee?
That is, if I could just jump in here, that is the actuary's projection for what that looks like on the claims side. And again, because these don't actually go against the claims, he just does some adjustment for adding that, what it looks like in terms of your claims experience. He can explain that better. But there's the claims piece and then there's the admin piece, which is the 12,000 is the admin piece.
Quick question.
Do you have a question?
Quick question. Is this leaving our deductibles at 2,500 and 5,000
Good
for
question.
the 6-month period?
Yeah, so it does, good, and then we'll get to that. So what we did is we left the deductibles and the out-of-pocket max and co-insurance for the first year, we left them alone, because if we
The first
lowered
year
them,
or 6
for the
months?
last 6 months, I'm sorry. We left them alone because if you drop them mid-year, then Gilsbar has to go back and reprocess claims. In addition to that, you have a natural claims lag that's 90 days minimum, okay, where they come in. People are filing taxes, it's going back and forth, and in real simple terms, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we believe one, it's difficult for any TPA to administer, and two, we think it would tick people off more than it's worth. It's dialed in for right now, so we held the changes in that to July. Okay? So it's just, all we're proposing for January is copay changes and lower them. Okay? And again, at the bottom, we got an asterisk. We'll show you the software that Sue came up with. If you want to look and you want to start flipping through them, Madam Chair will do it. It automatically updates all these numbers.
And one of the things on the remove clinic lab and remove clinic RX, those are what are currently, what we know are in the budget, but if those numbers end up being higher, then the savings end up being higher.
Correct.
Do you understand what I'm saying with that? Is because we've seen, in fact, I was looking at the last transition. We get a transactional invoice and we get a monthly management fee invoice. So the management fee invoice is north of 53,000, or I think it's 53,000 plus a month, and the transactional invoices for the supplies and prescriptions and whatnot. The last transactional invoice that I saw was over $20,000, and then the one before that was 18,000, and then there was one at 9,000. So they're like this. So if there are changes in there, plus or minus, that number could change.
Well, frankly, I think it's an excellent point. They all can change because the
Right.
claims component's the biggest fix.
Right.
Right? And we believe we've been conservative, but reasonably conservative. This is not a sky falling.
Right.
And our rationale is we know that the trust, in our view, is under-reserved. It's okay with money, but it really should have more. So we're trying to make sure that if we defer in terms of having more money in there to keep it stable. Okay, just FYI. So these would go in January. We'd lower those co-pays, and we still wind up about 70,000 in the red, theoretically, for the year. Okay, so then, this is where it was kind of intriguing to us. If you go in July, so you have a base funding factor increase, that's basically the actuary saying inflation. right? So normal health cost inflation at 8% overall ballpark. So you said even if you don't do anything else, your funding requirement's going to go up about $330,000. And again, asterisk, way early numbers, super early numbers. So take them with they're a grain of salt. We then lowered the deductible from $2,500, $5,000 to $1,500 and $4,500 for a family. Lowered the out-of-pocket max to $3,000, $12,000, and it's currently $6,500, $13,000. So we lowered it, we lowered it to $4,000 from $6,500, I think it was, right, Jim?
Correct.
$6,500, $12,000. And then we kept all the co-pays as we had in January. All the stuff I already covered in the last slide. We eliminate the silver plan. So basically the retirees would have to go on to the one plan. We eliminate the case management penalty that's in there, which is basically if you refuse to participate with case management, your benefits reduced by 50%. We got rid of that. And then we added the high deductible health plan. There's zero value associated with the high deductible health plan because we didn't know how many people might enroll in it, and we're still playing with the numbers on that one. And then we adjusted out the clinic operating expenses, and that results in, by the time you're all done, the clinic's gone now. The only thing left in here at this point in the clinic is we still left, I believe it's $50,000 in expected operating costs, and we don't know if the clinic's going to shut down or be paying the rent. So we still left $50,000 in the budget for that. So this would require a funding increase now of $410,000. Okay, and to kind of move that forward, what that looks like is the premiums you wind up with in 1920, the actuarially funded premiums in 1920, if all of this pulls out, right, are lower than what the actuarially funded premiums are today. Okay, so we got the deductibles, we got the copay, we got the deductibles, the copays, the coinsurance down. We added teledoc. And we got the premiums. If the district funds it, right, it's higher than they're paying today on a funded basis, right? But it's lower than what the actuarial rates are, and it gives the option of adding that high deductible health plan with a health savings account with lower yet premiums.
Aaron, is the teledoc on the bottom, the slide before, the bottom one, is the teledoc admin fee, is that included in the base funding
It's
factor?
in there, yep. It's in, teledoc's in there. Yeah, it's at that 8,000 figure.
It's actually part of the, that $219,000 number. It's part of the adjustments we made on the admin expenses. It just didn't get called out separately. The admin fee didn't, but it's in there.
Okay.
It's totaled in with that $219,000.
Okay.
Question from the audience?
Yes, is the flexible savings account still offered with this?
We've made no changes to any of the FSAs. So the FSA would be restricted to, as it is today. You'd have to be on the EPO plan, the current benefit. The health savings account comes with a savings account. So
Does everyone know what a health savings account and high deductible health plan is? Maybe you want to touch on that just a little bit.
How high of a deductible?
This assumes for what we use, and that's a good one. What we use is $4,000 per person, $8,000 per family. So the $4,000 would equal the out-of-pocket max on the EPO, but the family is lower at $8,000. Okay. The difference on a health savings account between an FSA and an HSA, for those of you who use FSA, FSAs are use it or lose it. So you put in a dollar amount, anything you don't use at the end of the year, you lose. With a health savings account, you put in whatever you put in and don't use rolls over from year to year to year. So it continues to build.
Would the premiums be the same for both plans?
They're actually, the premiums at this structure, that's one we'll show you. That's one of the challenges we ran into, Amy. When the deductibles and the out-of-pocket max on the current plan are so high, okay, that we actually were trying to get the high deductible health plan to $3,000, $6,000, okay. But when we did that, the high deductible health plan premiums became higher than the EPO, which we've never had happen before. Okay.
They're supposed to be lower.
They're supposed to be like roughly 5 to 10% difference, something like that. You should get in that range. But because we're trying to get that out-of-pocket max low and the deductible lower, they reversed. And that's why when I was saying before, that was, I guess from our vanity perspective, we thought we got this, it'll work. And then we're sitting there struggling with how do we do this? Because, and what we wound up doing is we had to call the actuaries to give us a number for 4,000, 8,000. And that is how we got them down below. So it's still lower, it's considerably lower than what the exposure is today, right? But there's no other way you can get the premiums to go back into normal alignment.
But the reason for that was because right now, the out-of-pocket is $6,500 to $13,000, which is extremely high, and to go that low, the 3,000, 6,000, there's such a huge...
Which would, and frankly, that's the normal plan design we
It
use
is.
with our clients, is
Right.
3.6, but we couldn't get it to work here because we were trying to get that,
Such
the other
a
side,
good-
we were trying to get the deductibles and co-pays, the out-of-pocket maxes down, and we just ran out of money.
And the idea behind having the difference in the savings of 10% or whatever on the high deductible plans is if you have that differential, the idea is that you put that additional premium in or that savings into the high deductible plan, and it continues to generate or, continue to save that, and you either use it or, if you decide, if you have additional money when you retire, you can take it out when you
So
retire.
on the employee end, if the high deductible plan is lower, is it the district's policy where they would fund the lower plan, and if you wanted the higher expense, you would pay the difference?
You can do it. You can do it that way. What you can do it a bunch of ways. What our clients, and everybody's different. Okay, you guys are only publicly funded K-12. Okay, what our counties and cities tend to do, and they vary, but what they'll typically do is say, we're going to budget based on the 740 figure, the higher figure. And if you go in the HSA to keep it neutral to us, you go to the high deductible health plan, we'll give you the premium difference. So it varies. We have City of Kingdon, I believe, matches dollar for dollar on the HSA. They're all over the place. Some put nothing in, but it varies.
And if I could just add on to that, I think to answer specifically the question, we haven't had these conversations yet with the district, so we don't have any idea what their intent would be, since this is a conversation for renewal July 1.
Right. And another question with eliminating the silver plan for the retirees, the whole goal of that was to lower the cost for the retiree. How much would that affect their out-of-pocket or their premiums?
Well, we don't know yet because these numbers are so far out that they're really just illustrative at this point.
Right.
So we'll know a lot more once we have more solid numbers as we get closer.
And these are honest answers.
Right. Yeah. We don't know.
There's no way to know that.
Right. Right.
And part of that is because we now have an actuary that is giving us projections and
Based on real world data.
based on real world data, and we're getting as close as we can get, but we're trying to go out into the future.
Beyond the norm. That's why, and Jamie, that's why we keep disclaimers saying, look, we've never done one this far out before. So we did get that anomaly, and it was a good one. It was a learning experience for us. We got that anomaly where with trying to drive the deductibles and everything down, we actually ran out of money because they were set so high. So it inverted for us. And that was interesting. So that's why we did the 4. The 4.8, frankly, is still better than what's in today, substantially better, especially on the family side with an $8,000 max out of pocket. It's just way better, but it was just, we hadn't seen it before. So.
Well, and the other thing I would add is that by the time we have better data to work with, it may be that a 3.6 looks better and is affordable, and we don't get that inversion factor. The other thing, just as for your information, I don't know if anybody knows this, but we have 7 people right now enrolled on the silver plan. So, and it's only offered to retirees. One of the things I know we talked about this year was whether to eliminate that and or whether to make that plan available to employees, to active employees as well. Why do only retirees get a choice? Because they can go to either plan. There are about 30 of them, I think, on the gold plan.
30 retirees on the gold plan?
Correct, if I'm not mistaken. Ballpark.
So there's only 7 people affected if we get rid of the silver plan at this point.
Correct. 6 employee only and 1 employee spouse, if I'm not mistaken.
So but the significance here, and I guess, Diane, for the district staff too, is that we actually get down to where we've done it, we think. Projections, right? But we've gotten to where that we did lower everything and still get the premiums to come down below where they should be today. again, I can't stress enough, the significance of this when we talk to the board next week is you have to give up the fantasy world of just saying this is what the number's going to be. Because that's why there was $2.7 million more infused into the trust. Now, it's one thing to wish people well, but you can't make them well by wishing, you know, and the claims are going to happen. So if you're going to get to a situation with this trust where it's not in crisis periodically, you're going to have to fund it.
Well, we have to get, I mean, we're at a place where we have to fund, we have to have the money to fund what we're going to buy.
Correct.
I mean,
Absolutely.
so if we want to buy a Ferrari, we better have the money for a Ferrari.
And these are our observations that we made. Again, I'll stomp my foot and put asterisks on here, but the 2019-2020 projections are very preliminary. We did have that challenge. We had to, again, we started with a deficit of $477,000 in the current year. We had to work our way through that. This is the one I was just hammering on. We have to reestablish the connection between the rates and what's funded, right? Because recognize it as a current expense. Whatever you're going to do in the benefits, recognize the current expense, fund it as you go along. This trust is small, okay? And small employers tend to be volatile. And I think that's probably what happened before. I think they went several years. I don't know how the funding was established, but it clearly was not adequate. That's when everything tanked. You know, it's a fool's errand to continue down that path. It's already failed. The trust underlying claim costs are somewhat high. We talked to Mike Shunning, about 5%. You know, again, with a small group that's partially sized. Schools tend to be heavier utilizers, like hospitals, of healthcare. And then there are, in the population, there are some ongoing large cases. All of those things are driving the costs up. I already covered this. The high deductible health plan was a challenge because of trying to get the other one down. So here's the next steps. Here's where we're at. We'll be happy to crunch any more numbers you want. But we're hoping that you'll be able to decide the benefit plan changes, because we have to work with BillSmart and the other vendors to get those co-pays loaded into their systems for January. Once you've made those decisions, then we, ECA, will work with those vendors. We'll get all that done. We'll then start creating educational materials for employees, and then the district staff's already said we want you to come on site and do meetings, which we'll do. We'll come do educational meetings, walk through it with people. We will have to do a mid-year open enrollment, even though we're improving the benefits by law, because it's changing. We have to offer a one-time open enrollment, so I have to work with that. And we already talked to Mike Murray's staff. And then we're continuing to continue just as the claims data rolls in, so we're updating that information. We give it to the actuary. And then I believe we're planning for February 4th and 5th.
I believe that's correct.
I think what we're looking at is when we do meet with you to do the actual planning, we'll have better data for the 19-20 year.
Erin, I had one more thing. Going into the January 2019, I know at the last meeting it had been suggested that maybe we were going to raise our copay to urgent care. I didn't see that on there. Is that something that was going to stay the same?
We did not do anything with it. It was too small to change. So we had, one of the options that we looked at was raising the urgent care copay to $75. I think it saved 0.015. So we did not recommend it. We recommended leaving it alone at $55.
For the January, June.
Thank you.
So the changes that we're looking at for January to June are for all employees, not just the ones obviously that are used in the clinic as their primary cares. They would no longer have a $55 copay for their primary care, and their specialists, they have $25 for primary and $50 for specialists. Instead of having deductible and 80/20 for x-ray and lab, they would have a $50 copay.
For freestanding.
For freestanding. And if they went to the hospital or they had an MRI or something like that, CT scan, that kind of thing, it would still be based on deductible co-insurance. The co-insurance and the deductible is not changing.
Not changing in January. It's not proposed to change in January.
Sterilization is going to change so that it's the same for men and women. Teledoc is going to be added. The 90-day copay for drugs is going to change to $20.70, $130 compared to
$25.90.
Right, 130, 195. So we gotta go back, 25, 105, 195.
So that's going down. And we're also removing the, are we taking out the penalty?
That's, no,
That's in the following.
the case management penalty we did not propose until
Okay.
July.
But with just those initial changes in that first 6 months, we have a savings with those changes of $407,000.
Correct.
We still have a deficit of about 70,000 that we're making up, but then if we assume that we made those other further changes, and didn't make any other changes, and I think what I saw was that the 2550 copays was the lowest of the choices, because I know there was one just a little bit higher, like a 3060, and that made a little bit of a difference. I think it was like a $6,000 difference a year.
It was not substantial going to 3060, and that we did this recognizing that Teledoc's a great option, but it's not going to cover everything, so we wanted to make sure that people had an opportunity to establish a primary care relationship,
Right.
and that the copay was attractive to do that.
Okay. So then, if we, I mean, all things being equal, and you know, and this is also assuming that the owner of the building doesn't put somebody else in that building in February or whenever, so we have to pay that.
Yeah, we kept everything that we need to keep to maintain the honor of the lease in, which is running about $50,000 a year.
So if for some reason the landlord decides to put that in there, then that's an expense that we don't have to.
Well, from a conservative standpoint, we projected it out to March of 2020,
We did.
but in all likelihood, there's already been interest in the community
Right.
in that location.
Right. So that would just be additional savings. So all things being equal and conservative, we're at the end of the 1920 projected plan, we've got an additional funding going into that trust at $410,000. So
Well, essentially what that does, what it does, Madam Chair, is it eliminates that deficit, so it gets us closer to break even, or projected break even. We're within $70,000 of a break even at that point.
And we've got a $25 copay for employees, and they've got a teledoc option, and
How long would that teledoc contract be for?
2 years. I thought it was 12 months, right? We have somebody that's
it's 12 months.
Yes.
And typically when we structure those, they'll be for 12 months, and then we'll have the option to renew on an ongoing basis for a specified period of time. But we always work into all of the contracts that we do on your behalf an out, so that if something happens and, you know, at the end of the first year you go, that's not really what we wanted, we don't have the utilization, you always have that out.
Courtney, the PEPM, does that stay fairly consistent year to year, you know?
Yes, so there is written in the contract, if you exceed X amount of utilization within your first year, then you're subject to an increase. Traditionally, it doesn't happen very often, but it's about 20 cents max. There's a cap on the increase.
On the amount of increase? Okay. That's in the initial contract?
Correct. It's not included in the proposal, but it will be included in the contract to review.
Okay.
And just to put that one in perspective too, because we budget based on $45. In our mind, we're thinking 45, because when you get to the high deductible health plan, it can't be free. So the charge currently for our clients is $45. That's what it works out to. I just went right out of my head.
I don't know where you were going, so sorry.
Gone.
I wasn't speaking Aaron right then, I apologize.
I feel like I just went in the other room to look for something and wondered
We're
what I
going
came
to talk
in.
about how the PEPM would be cheaper with the copay.
It's gone, sorry.
I'm in another building, so I don't know.
You're saying with the high deductible, it can't be free?
Can't be free with a high deductible health plan. You have to pay, the federal issue with federal law, you can't make it free.
And that was one of the reasons, I mean, in addition to the very high out-of-pocket, we couldn't offer the HSA before because they had zero copay with the clinic.
Yeah, because the clinic wasn't blocked offering, because the plan actually was high enough to qualify as a high deductible health plan, but because the clinic was services were no charge to the member, it was prohibited to put, you could not have a health savings account with it.
And Teledoc is an option for the employees, they don't have They don't have to sign up for it?
Correct.
If we were to charge for the high deductible, would it still be free for the other plan?
Yes, yeah, so if you're, it's one of the selection points you can make. So if you stay on the EPO, then you get it for no charge. If you go to the high deductible health plan, you have to pay. You pay the full charge, which we budgeted $45 to make. Well, a lot. It's frankly, it's kind of quirky to me in federal law, but nobody wants to play with the IRS.
If someone starts, if they choose to participate in the high deductible plan, and a year or 2 years down the road, they decide they don't want to do that anymore, and they want to go to the gold plan, can they do that?
Switch during open enrollment.
Yeah, there's not, yeah, the problem comes in when people go from PPO to high deductible. There are some things that we would work out and educate people on.
But anyone has the option at open enrollment to change.
Switch.
Yeah, there are some restrictions on who's eligible for health savings accounts and high deductible health plans, and we go through those. It's like you can't be on Medicare and contribute to an HSA. There's some restrictions on tribal members, on people who have who are on what's the military one? TRICARE or VA. There's some restrictions like that as you walk through it with them. And they're all tax issues with the feds.
No HSA for you.
No soup for you. Do we have any questions from the audience at all?
Go to the next slide, I think it's the next slide. No, one more. So that one, that will not be decided until June?
No, it'll be February.
That's decided in February?
But effective for July.
Correct. The concern is we've always offered the gold and silver, and we have staff that have, when they signed a contract, they were going to have 100% of their benefits paid for when they retired. And that's not the case anymore. So to be able to offer that, I understand you just said it's just 7 people, but that's because we're having to now, there is a handful that, or obviously 37, possibly or 35, what's the number you said? And then there's the rest of us that, that are closing in on our dates as well, that I just want to maybe consider that to keep it open as a silver and a gold. Because we signed a contract when we signed it back in 1994 that my health plan would be paid for when I retired. And that's not the case anymore. I now have to pay when I retire. So that's just something that I think.
Yeah, regardless of how that plays out, we made no assumptions on the silver plan, so we'd have to recrunch. Because what we would do is leave the silver plan as it is, which is considerably higher. Right, so, but we can crunch anyway. Jamie loves sitting in the office for 6 hours at a time, crunching.
It's my favorite.
And on the weekend?
Yes, yes.
Unless I call you and then it could be all night.
No, but yeah, the silver plan, as Erin said, we didn't even look at those numbers yet. But if the board wanted to keep that plan, it's not an issue on our side. We would just have to relook at how to realign those benefits as we did with the gold plan, and then have those repriced as well.
Sorry, I'm really confused. So I thought we had a cutoff on the retirees, so I'm confused.
If you got hired after a certain date, but those of us that were hired prior to that, we signed a contract prior to that said our benefits would be paid for. And now that's no longer the case.
In what year?
I think it was 2005?
The cutoff is either 2005, 2006.
So if you signed a contract after 2005, you have to pay your full benefits after retirement. Those of us that signed a contract prior to that, well, our contract stated that we were to have full benefits.
A long time. That means, yeah.
So those of all of us that have signed a contract prior to 2005.
How many is that?
You.
I know that's where our unfettered liability keeps going up for a while before it goes down because we still.
But I thought we were on the job.
There is, it's like a page of this. We're little for dental.
So,
And the 35 that are.
so is this an employment contract or is this a separate piece of paper?
And I don't know.
I'm just curious because, and I'm not saying anything one way or the other on it. It's just if it's an employment contract, it would be valid for a year.
Is that
I
a
don't
district
know how a one-year
issue
contract-
or is it an
district
EBT issue?
I would think so.
It's a district issue, but I'm not sure that a one-year contract with an extra paragraph inserted in it would bind the district related. Thank you.
It was actually in policy.
It is in.
And then when the policy was revised, it was also said from this point forward.
I don't know exactly what policy says, the policy addresses.
I just like to see it, just for my.
So is it the $4,000 that we allow for retirees, is that for people who became employed after that
No.
date?
No.
It's
That's
before.
before.
But that's not 100% funding, that's
Correct.
$4,000.
Now, yeah, yes. I mean, it's increasing every year.
Right. So, okay.
I think just for our own edification as well, we probably should know this was still under that plan, so that we can project it forward.
So the idea when you signed it was that it would be covered at 100%, but
And then
then
every year
it's
it's
been
been a little bit,
changed
little bit,
to
little
now
bit,
it's,
now it's.
you get 4,000 to put towards. Okay, all right. That makes sense. Now I'm not, I'm like, I missed something in all
No,
these
it's
meetings.
just that you're like, okay, well, I'll stay, you know, it's just a little bit.
Sure.
It's just a little bit. And then now that I'm going to be putting 30+ years in the system, it might be none. I might not, you know.
How much is the medical percent?
I haven't gotten there yet.
So you'll get together and figure out, get a list or talk to the district about. All we need is just direction on whether or not we need to run numbers on the solar plan.
Correct, and really, you don't even have to give us that today. We have time, that would be for July. Yeah, so we've got time.
Carol, going back to the contract for a moment, you signed an annual contract? Is that
We
what?
signed an annual contract, yes.
So-
And then when the budget is approved in June or July, you know, usually, in many cases, after I sign my contract, the budget is being approved. And then that's when a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more.
So a contract you signed 3 years ago, then the one you signed 2 years ago, does that supersede the other one? The other one goes away?
They're all annual contracts.
Okay.
We're not tenured, you know, it's not a.
Right. I'm just trying to get it clear in my mind as far as if a contract says when you retire, it's going to pay 100%.
It was in board policy too. At board
in
policy, the board
policy.
policy says if you were hired prior to this date, your insurance is covered.
Board policy.
Okay.
It's board policy, not current contract.
Yeah.
Right, so wouldn't that still be valid?
Yeah. Because policy is valid, yes.
Right, okay.
I just wasn't sure if it was policy or if it was that one-year contract.
I know this is probably the venue to discuss it, but I just want to get it kind of clear. Okay.
It'll be on next Tuesday's board agenda.
Yeah.
Because it is being voted on.
Okay.
In the last 2 years, we did have our budget done before contract, so just wanted to make that point.
Okay.
I have one email comment that I was sent that I promised to read, and we do have a public or comment, unless we have any other comments or questions from people that are here. This is an email that I received, and I think it's already been answered. But I did promise that I would read it out so we could answer if it hasn't been. And I believe it has to do with the high deductible plan. I truly wish I could be there, as I feel I need more information in order to feel that this option would be good for our trust and our staff, speaking specifically about the high deductible health plan. I also have heard heard about some of the other district plans, and basically what I had told this employee was that I liked the high deductible health plans. I thought they were a good option for employees, and that I had compared some, I had looked at several district plans. I had actually looked at 5 different district plans that had high deductible health plans, and it seemed to be a very popular option that some districts offered. And this employee said, I've also heard about some of these other district plans, and while they may seem great for a few, they are not good for all, and create a have and have-not system. The reason we have a group plan, and it's in quotes, is for all to receive the same good insurance, young and old, healthy and not as healthy. And then this employee goes on to say, I also have a huge, and it's in capitalized caps, I also have a huge concern about the cost of urgent care going up to $75, which was shown in the PowerPoint as a likely option, otherwise it wouldn't have been there. If this happens, I know that it's an incentive to use Teladoc, kind of like the clinic was cheaper than co-pays as an incentive. One urgent care visit for an ear infection would be 7% of my take-home pay, just one visit, not including a follow-up. No primary care physician will get you in quickly enough, especially during snowbird season, so this will be our only option. How can this be better? Thank you for your information. I hope you will keep these things in mind when making very important decisions. So I think we answered the question on the high deductible health plan. It's not the only option, obviously. There will be, I think, if we do include that as an option, I do think that there will be people that will want to consider it, because there are people that do prefer to have high deductible health plans and health savings accounts. It's a very popular option to people.
Especially for the younger and the healthy.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And as far as the $75 copay for urgent care, we've already established that from January to June, we're not changing that. It will be considered is when we go through the premiums or the rates and what we're going to consider for the new year, new plan year. And I do advocate for the Teladoc, because I do think that that's an option that will definitely save our plan dollars. And the fact, I wasn't aware of the fact that the benefits or the, whenever an employee uses the Teladoc, that didn't go against our claims. So I was pleasantly surprised to hear that. And $75, although that is a copay, that's 7%, I guess that's $1,071 take-home pay. I don't know if that's every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever, but so I'm not really sure how to comment on that, but I did promise to read that out loud. I don't know if anybody else has any comments about that. And then we have one call to the public or comment from Judy McClintock. You wanted to comment on closure of the Health and Wellness Clinic. Is Judy McClintock still here?
Okay. You can all see me from here. And this is just something I have to get off my chest. I know it's not going to change a thing, but it's something that I've been hearing from a lot of people, and this is the proper forum, I believe, for me to address it. So I'm just going to read my statement. And then I can move forward with life. I'll sleep well at night. On March 6th of this year, the governing board unanimously approved action item 3.1, the employee compensation package for the fiscal year 18-19. With that vote, they approved a contribution to the EBT reserve to secure stability for the EBT. I don't know the dollar amount on that contribution because to date no contribution has been made. Perhaps if that board-approved contribution had been made, the EBT would not be looking at a possible $472,000 deficit, and the center would not have faced closure. On March 29th, district employees attended a mandatory EBT update presented by ECA. The presentation contends that the current benefit design of the EBT is built around the Health and Wellness Center. With the center having only been opened in 2012, I question what the design of the EBT was built around for decades prior. Staff was presented with the newly agreed upon clinic benefits for 2018 including co-pays of $20 per visit, $10 per RX, as well as the 2018-19 deductibles for the Gold and Silver Blue Cross Blue Shield plans. The fact that the district had a contractual obligation with Cerner and the building leased for the clinic through March 2020 was communicated to us, along with the EBT's cost concerns regarding Cerner. At no time, however, was there discussion of the imminent and impending closure of the clinic. School district employees left the PAC that day with every reason to believe that the clinic would still be available at a copay to them for their 2018-19 contractual year. In fact, I turned in my signed 2018-19 Notice of Employment contract at LEAK, as did most other employees, knowing that in 2020, I and about 400 other people would be searching for a new primary care position. Another school year ended in May of 18, and the vast majority of our employees went on vacation or worked their second and third jobs, believing that their 18-19 contracted benefits were secured, including the Health and Wellness Center. A funny thing happened, however, in midsummer. Some of the same individuals who have been demanding transparency and open communication were involved in an EBT special telephonic executive session on Friday, June 29th at 4 p.m., while most of us were celebrating a long Independence Day weekend. I have no doubt that the meeting was posted somewhere to meet the legal requirements. We are not privy to the goings-on in an executive session, but we do know that the result of this particular session. A legal, call it loophole, was found, which made the Cerner contract and others null and void. The EBT entered into a ratification agreement with Cerner for 60 days to negotiate expenses and costs, and if no agreement was reached, a 120-day wind-down period was to begin for Cerner. So if Cerner could not lower costs to the satisfaction of the trustees would shut down the clinic as of December 31st, 18. And this was all decided on a Friday afternoon, June 29th, while the majority of us were not really looking for anything different. All of this while we were all busy with family and fireworks. We weren't scouring the internet and newspapers for meeting notices because we had signed contracts and board-approved salary and benefit packages. We trusted our employer. We trusted the trustees. I will not trust so blindly in the future. Now, I have less than 4 months to find a Blue Cross Blue Shield primary care provider, money for co-pays, and $2,500 for deductibles. And that's supposed to be more cost-effective for me and provide a better quality of care for me. According to one board member, the clinic is just a very small portion of some people's health care. About 400 out of 800 employees and covered family members use the clinic as a primary care physician. So I am to guess that 50% is considered a very small portion. The trustees are doing as they are told by the governing board, making decisions about our health care based on financial information and fiduciary responsibility. You know, the bottom line, not at all on the feelings or buy-in of the staff. That is clear. It has been made abundantly clear for over 3 years that there are individuals and trustees who have been trying to get information about the clinic. We know that this has never just been about Cerner. It has been a mission to close the clinic. Well, congratulations, mission accomplished. I have presented actual facts. Now let me tell you how I feel. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel cheated. I feel lied to. I feel distrustful and wary. I feel the actions of some of the EBT moments have been two-faced and underhanded. I feel the trustees' actions have placed the district in breach of contract. Above all, I feel betrayed. My question to you now is this. If the benefit design of the EBT was indeed built around the health and wellness clinic, and that clinic is closing, why does this school district need an EBT? Of what value is yet another group of people making decisions for us and about us? What good is spending thousands upon thousands of my and our precious tax dollars on consultants and insurance brokers and attorneys. I can go online, I already have, and I found a plan for $750 myself that I could get for me. I don't feel the need for an EBT and more meetings and more of everything. So why do we need you? And that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, most of your statements were based on feelings and not on facts. And
They're
everything.
facts, and I can show them to you because I listened to meetings.
Please do share them with us. Please share.
It's all online. It's in the board meetings. It's in the meetings. It's all there because you want transparency, and so I'm saying.
Right.
Because of that transparency, however, I do feel personally, this is just a personal feeling, and that's why I had to get it off my chest. Nobody knew coming back in August that the possible closure of the clinic was upon us because we were told in March there were going to be co-pays and this and that, all of that. So we signed contracts based on that. So far, we don't have any signed contract for benefits by the board. You haven't signed. I can't find anywhere in the minutes of the meetings where you sign what our benefits will be and the current, just please let me finish real quick. And I pulled off of our website currently, as of August 2nd, a PowerPoint presentation that was provided to our payroll department from Aaron Collins and Associates. That includes the health and wellness program. This was as of August 2nd. It was placed up there, including that. So everyone coming back to work was expecting the same. We were not expecting this. We thought we had some time. Now we don't have that time. I'm just telling you how I feel about it. And I do have the information from the meetings if you have to see them. But
and I appreciate how you feel. I really do, because I don't think anybody wants to upset the apple cart. But when you say that the board has to contract, and I'm assuming you mean the governing board, when you say that? The governing board has to contract this. This board is an independent board away from the governing board. They decide as a group what your benefits are. What your benefits are. The governing board's position in this whole thing is we fund the benefits. We don't decide on benefits, we don't delineate benefits. That's the operation of this board. That's how this is designed to work.
I understand that. I also understand that I heard a board member, and you can hear it as well, specifically instruct the trustees to remember their fiduciary responsibility and all these things.
Me.
That's correct.
Because a lot of decisions over the past 5 years were based on emotion. There were not, premiums were not raised, contributions were not raised, and these were all
I don't
based
want
on
to do
emotion.
this. I just wanted to speak my piece so that I could sleep
Well, that's okay,
and put it
but you
behind me.
insinuated that we hadn't made a contribution, and I take exception to
That you
that.
hadn't made a contribution.
That the school district had not made you in.
No, I
insinuated there was
don't
not a
understand.
contribution.
No, a lot of people have asked, why do we need a benefit trust then? We are a small group of people, so I don't know what benefit trust is.
But we are a partially self-funded trust, so there has to be a group, a board, if you will, to manage that. If we were a completely fully insured plan and we just went out and bought something off the shelf, if you will, then the school district could manage it themselves. But that's not the way.
That's right.
But so in 1986, this district decided to make a change.
Right.
So 32 years ago, this was created, and if that's the direction that we feel the majority of the staff want to go, we're not opposed to hearing it. The problem is that you've got the animal, and then how do you manage and work the animal? That's really the problem. And so, you know, if you have this insurance plan and it's in place and you're plowing money into it, I mean, how do you manage that? And that's what this board is designed to do. We can certainly look at going to a marketplace plan if that's what our staff desires. And benefits are part of the compensation package. This is money that the taxpayers put up.
And
for
we're all
you.
taxpayers, we get it.
So,
And please keep in mind that every year we will certainly, I mean, some trusts do it every year, some do it every couple of years, it just depends on the makeup. Will certainly go out, do their due diligence, do RFPs for renewals, whatnot. And then there are open enrollment every year. We'll happen to have more than one.
Well,
But at every year, every employee has the right to either choose to participate in the benefit options or not. And if you elect not to, you certainly do have the option to go out and purchase your insurance on your own. And so if you do want to.
That wasn't my point.
Right, and I do appreciate you bringing your concerns and making your comments, because obviously those were the comments that you needed to make, and I
And a lot of
appreciate you.
people have also
And again, I
repeated that, so I just became the mouthpiece for them. I'm just saying, this is how people felt.
and I've asked for the last 3 weeks.
I understand, we've heard that, I know that you have asked for 3 years.
Well,
for
no,
stuff
not
from
for
Cerner
3 years,
and-
that's actually not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is for the last 3 weeks, I've been asking people to send emails and ask for questions and comments, and I've gotten 2. So we do want to try and answer all those questions. All of these things were done because when we finally were able to figure out what was happening, we found out that all of these contracts were void because these programs were written, these contracts were written behind closed doors and in violation of open meeting laws, which should have been very well known by the trustees that were sitting on this board for years and years and years. And they were taking advantage of all these things and doing these things as a disservice to the community and as a disservice to the people that work for the school district. So we're just trying to right the ship.
You've been very wonderful at replying to my questions and everything, and I appreciate your openness and honesty with replying to my emails and the questions that I've had, and I appreciate that. And I'm not pointing fingers or blame or anything.
No, and I
I'm just
appreciate
saying
you making your
the way it
comments.
was laid out
Absolutely.
and done doesn't feel right, but it doesn't matter in the long run. And it'll come
I
to
would like
tomorrow.
a little clarification on, you said that had we made a contribution this year, I really need clarification on that maybe we wouldn't be in this position.
March 6th, Governing Board, action item 3.1. With that vote, you said yes to a 10% increase in per employee premium, bringing it up to the $667, I believe. You also said yes to, and this is pretty much her quote, a contribution to the EBT reserve to secure stability.
Yes.
that comes out of the override money. That's a targeted thing. When the override money comes in M&O, we're taking part of that out to do that.
The trust had to be stabilized in order to provide.
That was as of March 6th. I can find no record of any contribution having been made as it has in past years. But that's, so I'm just saying.
Well, that's a pretty big accusation to make.
It's not an accusation, I'm
It
saying I
is.
couldn't find it.
Couldn't find it, where did you talk?
In the meeting minute, yes, I
Well,
looked at,
it wouldn't necessarily be in the meeting minutes.
and I spoke with payroll and spoke with accounts payable. I have done my due diligence as well. I'm not accusing, I'm just saying.
But if it's,
Well,
but it may be a perfectly acceptable thing if you stop and think about it and understand that it's override money. It comes in just like M&O. It comes in over time. It's not a, gosh, here's this big chunk of money and just going to slide over there all at once.
okay, I don't want to do it. I just want to state my case. All right? Thank you. Thank you very much for
Thank you for
your work
coming.
that you do. I do appreciate it.
I know, I'm the same. Do we have any other comments or questions on the presentation that Mr. Collins did? We have one more piece that we need to cover, but we do actually need to vote on this.
Madam Chair, just a point of clarification, what you're going to vote on, and we'll also do whatever else you want to do, okay, is just the January to June recommendations that we have.
And before we do that, I guess my question to the trustees and to anyone else in the room is, do we want to look at any other options other than the $25.50 copays? There are other options. I think I had looked at just one. I don't think that it made that much difference in the overall cost, but they would be higher copays to the employees, and I just felt that the $25 copay was, that just felt like a good copay to me. Yeah, I mean, that's a very,
I don't want to look at anything higher.
yeah. I agree. So that would be my recommendation, unless somebody has another suggestion.
Were you going to get Mike on the phone? Did he have to provide you other input, or no? We're just
only if you had questions. Al. All of those numbers were his numbers. So we just plugged them into the budget. So if you guys had a question on methodology or something, we would call him.
But we still don't know. I mean, these numbers are going to be pretty static come January, or they can.
The January numbers are solid. The July numbers are not. Without those.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So do I hear a motion to approve the recommendation?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
You're going to read it all?
No, I'll make a motion regarding 4.2. Make a motion to accept the presentation for the January 1 to June 30th, 2019, as presented.
Second.
Vote, please.
Amy Barney,
Yes.
Al Christensen,
Yes.
Marsha Cox,
Yes.
Julie Sassine.
Yes.
We have a unanimous vote.
And then I think the final thing that we wanted to share was just some additional information that we had on just some of the things that we found, like scheduling labs online, things like that. Because, and I only brought one example of, I think my example has LabCorp, but if it's a lab, for example, that's contracted with Blue Cross, because that's our provider contract, I guess. But this is just an example of how to go online, because LabCorp and SonoraQuest, I think, because I use both of them, you can actually schedule an appointment with them to go in as early as 6 o'clock in the morning to do a lab. So there is a way to do that. So if you want to just go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you have the clicker.
My leg's asleep, Madam
Click
Chair.
away. Oh.
Nick, turn it back on the side. Hang on. I can do this without blowing my knee.
So this is just going on to labcorp.com, and you just click up on the account login. You can see up at the top right, you just register to go to create a new account, and just pretty straightforward. Fill out all the information, and then once you're registered, the nice thing I liked about this, and I think if I remember right, SonoraQuest did kind of the same thing. And I think you can see it on there, but you can register, anytime you want. So if you need to get labs done, before a follow-up appointment or something, you can move the date range, and go out 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. But you can go as early as 6 o'clock in the morning. They do have special times, I think, for like drug screenings and things like that. I think they start at 8. But then you can move the date range, and then just pick them in like 15-minute increments. And you can pick choice of day, whatnot. But and then, once you check in, and I have an app on my phone that it'll check and it'll like send me a little text message and tell me, by the way, you have an appointment tomorrow, that kind of thing. And you can actually reschedule it if you want to, that kind of thing. So it's just, I guess the point of it is that it's nice to know that you can make an appointment as early as 6 o'clock in the morning if you need to do it.
Madam Chair, can I make a comment about level?
Sure.
Okay, so also too, some different other things that might be helpful to our members is that the hospital has a self-pay menu. You can go in and get a CBC for like $10. So, and run it off of insurance. So we took the 25 top tests that we do, and we made a self-pay menu. The Havasu Community Health Foundation also has a way, if people have high deductibles and pick the high deductible health plan, that they can also go through the Community Health Foundation. They can also get very low cost labs. So there's some alternatives for labs out there as far as cost.
Right. So, and in the state of Arizona, you have the option, we have a law in the state of Arizona that says you can self-pay, and you can actually self-refer.
You have to get a doctor's order for labs in the state of Arizona.
Right. And so what's also nice with the labs is if you have an account like this, I guess I have to go back to work. If you have an account, anytime you get a lab, you'll get a notification when they're finished or when they're ready to review. A lot of doctors don't particularly like that, but I love it because and when my doctor calls me.
Patient portals anymore, you can see all your stuff
Patient portals are wonderful because
before you
my
ever go to
doctor
the
calls.
doctor.
Yep, says you need to come in and see your labs. I say, yep, got it, already got it, looks good, or not. So, and then the other thing is that we also have, we do have a list of, there's 39 family practice, internal medicine, peds, OB-GYNs that are accepting new patients. So that's available. I think we have that in.
I have the list right up here for anybody who wants them.
There's a hard copy list over here if anybody wants that.
Yeah, I put together, I go out and work with all the offices, and I've been asking since the clinic has been closing, when I'm out there, I'm asking, are you taking new patients? And there's not been one office that's told me no, they're not, that they're closed. The important thing is to establish now before snowbird season.
Right.
Get in, get your free physical, your yearly physical now, get established as a patient.
Right.
Because that way you're in the network, and
right.
Doing it in January is just not going to happen.
Right. So one of the things that we want to remind everybody of is that the Affordable Care Act allows you to go have a routine physical at a medical clinic outside of the clinic, and it's covered at 100%. And remember that one of the things that we verified was that if you did have a routine physical at the Health and Wellness Clinic, it's not in the system, it's not in the GILSBAR database, so there's nothing in there that says, oh, Marsha Cox already had a routine physical, so she can't have another one this year, okay? So you can call a doctor's office and say, hi, this is Marsha Cox, I want to establish as a new patient, I want to have a routine physical with you, can you get me in the schedule, can I be a new patient? And that's basically what happens. So that's the reason why, with Julie making that comment, is go ahead and get established now. So establishing just means I want to be a new patient of yours. And so if you do that now and you don't wait until January, if you do get sick in January and you need to have a visit, you're not a new patient. So it's going to be easier for you to get in to see a doctor. So that's the whole idea.
Yeah, and I actually called for something, else, but I actually was able to get a patient in next day with two physicians that I called. So there are physicians that have open availability that you could get in fairly quickly, and they're good physicians too.
Yeah. And there is another ped, I think, that's going to be opening up, I think, or accepting new patients in about 6 months. So there will be another pediatrician that will be adding. So this is just an example of the type of things that you can do. That so remember, our routine physical is paid at 100%. So that's because currently up until December 31st, you have the $55 copay. So if you have a routine physical, it's paid at 100% with no copay. So if you're going to be, calling to establish as a new patient, you want to make sure that you're going in to get a routine physical. Okay.
So would that cover if they wanted to do lab work and stuff? Do they do lab work for,
If it's routine lab, but really you have to make sure that, they're doing a routine, excuse me, a routine lab. And that can get a little tricky. Basically, I think you should just ask them to just do a routine exam. And I did actually provide, and so if you guys should ask for a copy of this little bitty presentation, because there are some codes in here. Then the basic rule, and these codes are things that you can go out and buy a $140 book just like I do every year. They're not secret, and if you see these codes, you'll know that it's a routine visit. But if you're calling to, ask for a routine physical, you just need to know the language, and it's basically, I'm calling to establish as a new patient with Dr. So-and-so, I'd like to schedule a routine physical, or you're calling for your child. You're just calling to establish as a new patient. You're not calling because you have diabetes and you want to get a checkup, because that's a sickness, that's an illness, that's a different kind of a visit, okay? You're calling to establish as a new patient. Those are the words that you need to use, because that's exactly the type of a visit that you're trying to have, okay? And they'll have, some of them have websites you can go on, print all of their patient information. Some of them have patient portals. You can go on, you can register, you can fill all your paperwork out. You will have to do all of that. And we did have a call with Cerner today. They were very nice. They will give you a medical release form, and that will allow you to have your form or your medical records transferred over to another provider if you want them to do that. But you also can, literally go into the clinic and have them print copies of your records for you. So don't be afraid to ask that.
And don't wait till January.
And please don't, yeah. And because if you wait, especially if you wait till after January, you will be referred to get your records in Missouri. So you'll have to send a request there. Okay. These are actually what are called preventive codes. So these are the types of codes that you see if you're going in for a routine physical. And the only reason I'm showing you those is because if you go into a doctor's office and you go in to establish as a new patient and have a routine physical and you don't see those codes, they did not charge you for a routine physical. So you just need to make sure that that's what you see. Okay? And those aren't any secret numbers or anything. That's what they are. And those are the numbers, those are the codes that, that would be paid at 100% with no copay. And again, we want to make sure that you have the information as much as we can give you, and to make it, easy for you to know that if there's something that you can do now and not have to pay a $55 copay and get established as a new patient now instead of just, January, then we want to share that with you. Do you have any other extra advice on that, Julie, at all? And like you said, the doctors, the providers in town.
I'm out in the doctor's offices pretty much daily, and I've been asking, and I mean, there's some practices that it could take several months to get established as a new patient, but there's others that you could get in next week. So there's 3 nurse practitioners that I know of right off the top of my head. Also 2, I believe one of the nurse practitioners from the clinic is going over to North Country, so as of January 1, so they'll be remaining in the community, so that's nice that we're not losing a provider.
Oh, that's good.
I noticed there's a lot on here for Cornerstone. Do you think if you establish with one of those, you could get into any of them?
I believe their office you typically establish with the provider. Now, if you say you establish with Dr. Whelan as your provider, and you have an urgent care kind of call that you need to get in, you may see the nurse practitioner that day. They may get you in with her. So
it just seems like it'd be maybe a good choice, because if you have that many to choose from in that office, you might get in quicker.
They're an extremely busy office.
Yeah.
So
They share the space.
But there's like Jackie Meyer, June Franzen, Krista Paulo is a new nurse practitioner in town. I've been impressed with her so far. There are 3. When I walk in the office, they seem to not be super overwhelmed. So I think you could probably get in. Dr. O'Neill, I got the patient in the next day. I actually emailed him at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he emailed me back and said, I'll see him tomorrow at 8. I'm like, oh, okay, great.
And remember too that when, after you're established and, you're no longer a new patient, now you're considered
part of the practice.
Part of the practice, you're established. And if you do need to schedule an appointment, you can you know, I mean, I do this all the time with my doctor, and I'll say, you know, I need to come in and I need to see you for this, this, and this, and, you know, it's usually a couple different things, and we talk about all of them. You know, my doctor actually likes to talk to me more than I really want to be there, but, you know, because I'm usually there about 45 minutes, I'm like, no, I only have 3 things to talk about, so you don't have to ask me what else you want to talk about. So, I mean, there are doctors, there are a lot of providers that, you know, they're not going to shoot you out the door, so, but you do, and the reason why you need to just make sure that you let them know what you want to discuss is because they have to schedule, you know, the right amount of time, you know, to spend with you and to know if they need to draw labs or they need to have, you know, something ready to, you know, do another exam with you or whatever. They just need to be prepared to see you. So that's just some examples and some ideas to help you just kind of prepare. And again, you know, if you can share this information with anybody that you know in the district and just say, you know, start now. Don't wait till, you know, December 15th or, you know, whenever. I mean, just start now and, you know, just be prepared and you know, whatever we do, if there's any other information that we can get, we'll certainly share it with you. And, you know, we want it to be, you know, a transition, you know, that we can help you with and not be too painful. So.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Otherwise, Hal's.
Just made a motion, no one seconded it.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, Carol.
It's been a long day.
Stick around, I was going to ask.
Okay.